and foremost, we're gonna look at fascia. Anybody not heard of the term fascia before? Nadine, all right. Well, for Nadine, because he's the only one that needs this right now, fascia is like this spider web that goes through the body. It's all these elastic tissues that are attaching everywhere. This is why I'm in a cat suit. This is your fascia. It's just everywhere and connects to everything. And you can kind of see this here a little bit, and what you can't, I'm gonna explain. So, on this outside here, this is a muscle, and around that whole muscle, the whole arm, it's covered in a layer of this fascia, kind of like this, like saran wrap, but a spidery one that stretches a lot. And then that fascia is gonna go around each individual muscle and each individual fiber within that muscle and every single organ. And it's gonna go from shoulder to hip. It's gonna go from head to toe. It goes everywhere. It's a maniac. It has no limitations. It does have a few limitations. But what it does is it's going to compartmentalize areas. It's also going to allow for displacement of force so that you're moving in one direct movement. It's going to connect different areas of the body. It's going to suspend all of your blood vessels and your nerves and whatnot within it. It is very interconnected with the body. And if anybody is having a hard time with the statements I'm saying right now, have you ever worked with a piece of chicken and you see that like kind of iridescent white film that's like encased around the breast or whatever it is? That's the tissue we're talking about right now. So we're going to be addressing that first because it's everywhere. It's huge. It covers everything. And we're going to bring it back to this: asymmetry, restriction, texture, and sensory. So how do you know what to work on? How do you know how to work on it? What to work on? We picked fascia, one, because it is just underneath the skin. So it is the most accessible tissue. Number two, it goes everywhere. It's huge. And big things usually have big influence. So we're gonna start there. How to approach it? We're gonna look at asymmetry. So the tissue is all over the shoulder, all over the shoulder. This is gonna be my attempt at a magnifying glass. I didn't go to school for arts. I went to school for sciences, so bear with me. There we go, kind of. Everybody can see me, kind of? All right, taking my hood off. Okay, first, this is our fascia. We're looking at the front of the shoulders. Can anybody see any asymmetries from one side to the other? Yeah, so it's pretty obvious. I'm kind of like bundled and pulling here. And anybody that looks at another person might be able to see that in like the clothing they're wearing or something. There's some bundles on one side and not the other. That could be an indication there's some asymmetry. The other thing we could do is move it. Now, how do we move it? Well, fascia is the spider web. It just gets pulled like an elastic. So what we can do is we can literally pull it, or we can try and stretch it this way, or we can take bones and move them to move it. So we'll take a full arm and move it. I'm going to challenge you guys to do that right now to yourself. So we're going to come to the front of our shoulders, and we can either pull at the skin on the front of the shoulders, left to right, see if there's some asymmetry, or you can try and move the skin on the front of your shoulders, see if there's some asymmetry, or you can feel the tissue and move your arm and see if one of them is moving more or less than the other, and you're feeling for that elasticness of the skin and just underneath the skin. Did anybody notice that one side was a little different than the other? Yeah. Okay, so now we're working with asymmetry, and you probably were already noticing some restriction. Other things are textures that you can feel. You can feel just difference in the texture. What does your senses on your fingers feel differently on one side to the other? And then sensory would be something that this area is telling your brain. So it could say, I'm in pain, I don't like that. And you could have a discomfort feeling coming. Or like, I don't know, maybe your face starts to twitch or something. Who knows? But you'll notice that, and you'll notice that one side versus the other. If there's asymmetry, then we're gonna try and treat it. You guys are already through an assessment. This is awesome. Now, how you would treat it, I might end up messing this up, so we might have to go back. Yeah, we don't want that yet. How you treat it is also gonna be relative to the tissue you're working on. So fascia, it holds things, holds them for a long time. It does not contract. You cannot get a nerve telling it to squeeze. It doesn't work that way. It wraps around everything. And then on a chemical level, it's got these proteins that are held together by these hydrogen bonds. You don't need to worry about that. But the point is, you need to stretch fascia, and you're going to be putting tissue tension onto that tissue, and then you hold that for a period of time. And then eventually what happens is you'll notice that the fibers start to stretch or elongate. Just like a muscle, you'll hold it and hold it and hold it. And this is something that you'll probably notice when you do like cupping, for example. Cupping, it pulls the fascia and it holds it, and then eventually it starts to elongate. The sensory change, the like discomfort you get, that starts to go away. You might notice it with stretching, for example. Who's been given a doorway stretch before? Probably a few of you. I've heard them being told quite a few times in this clinic. Same idea. You're taking that fascia, you're stretching, you're holding it, and eventually those fascial bindings are going to start letting go and it's going to relax. When it's done, it's done. You don't need to treat that no more. You've got other things to look at. And in that case, I have treated, I'm symmetrical, but now it's still not symmetrical in my movements, so we're going to look at